Hey everybody. Happy Super Bowl Sunday here. Your favorite Stampede Blue Attention whore here, Jared Malott, with episode 21, the Nyheim Hines episode of The Coltist, which is a football podcast hosted by yours truly, typically co-hosted by none other than Stampede Blues Mateo Calise. Mateo is right now in the Argentinian mountainside camping with his family and enjoying the hell out of the outdoors. And I'm guessing better weather than we have here in Indy. Um, I hope everybody has enjoyed the festivities the last couple of weeks. Um, I, again, I work from home. I help the elderly with their health care. So I always have a TV on with Good Morning Football on, and then generally um, probably watching some old game or some interview or some football life documentary, right? So my head's always in it. Um, so yeah, for the last couple weeks with the Pro Bowl and all Super Bowl festivities, it's just part of the game, right? So it's certainly interesting today on Super Bowl Sunday. Um, Joe Burrow versus Matt Stafford. Um, and I was sort of combing through, so I want to start with why are these guys here? Um, they take a good amount of risk, but they also are consistent in that they consistently move the ball and get themselves into like scoring range. And so when I was kind of doing a deep dive, so one of the things I was thinking about, if I'm going to talk about something that isn't the Colts, I want to talk about why aren't the Colts here? In addition to the very obvious, one of the things that um, have appreciated this year is that I haven't really felt the need myself to go back and watch Carson Wentz's tape and dissect it and figure out what he was doing wrong. And the reason I feel that way um, is because somebody beat us to it and did really good film work, and then I've got a whole staff of guys that I work with that's the kind of stuff that they do. So if you're looking for what happened with Carson Wentz, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Many of you that listen to this podcast that are my friends, and one, you'll notice the bags under my eyes. Your boy's tired. I have taken it upon myself, and that's exactly how that needs to be said. I did this on my own volition. Um, but basically, what I decided to do before I drop a bunch of money and go back to school is I wanted to get into coaching football and ultimately kind of, I hate to say it like that, get my way. And I did a little bit last year, and I've told y'all many a time, had some success. But ultimately, I felt like the team had the foundation for greatness in that a lot of the big guys on the team are friends. So your offensive and defensive lineman types, they all hang out and they all live in the same kind of area, and their girlfriends are friends and stuff like that. So that, first of all, that's whew, what a blessing to be playing football and have a great group of big guys that all love and appreciate each other and work together and are going to be fun as hell to play football with and win with. Um, and then, in my opinion, we've got a really tight, what I would call a skill group. So wide receivers, tight ends, cornerbacks, safeties. We're actually pretty good there. Um, and so so I'm hoping that if you're watching this, that you first watch the last episode because what it'll tell you is a lot about me. In that episode was actually recorded last weekend, but I was nervous. Um, again, uh, if you've been kind of following along here, I started out 318.8 pounds on December 26th with a clean bill of health from the VA after going and getting, I had gotten COVID, way back in May, June timeframe, which actually held me out of the playoffs for this team that I was coaching, which is kind of part of why I've refused to let that be how that light fades, right? Is that I wasn't there in a critical moment. So I kind of took it upon myself. Like I realized after I got a clean bill of health, I'm a big guy. I've been told for the longest time to get my weight under control. And what a better motivator to get your weight under control than to say to the team that you're coaching, like, hey, I'm interested in playing. I need a reason to get in shape. You're obviously going to need to do better than I'm capable of doing if you're ever going to excel beyond what I'm capable of delivering at this position. And since basically December 26th, so from my perspective, that's about 8 weeks, I guess, if you think about it like that. 7, 6, 7, 7-ish, 8-ish weeks. Um, 7-ish is probably more appropriate, Jared. But yeah, I'm about 7 weeks in. I'm about 275. Um, so I think I've lost a little over 45 pounds since December 26th. Today's the first time I've ever stood naked in front of my wife and flexed, and she was like, "Oh my God." So there's that. But I understand what I am deficient in, right? Certainly not deficient in confidence, nor football sort of know how. But definitely am going to have to continue to develop my arm because, well, that's the gun. And then the secondary, the kind of go to thing for a quarterback, in addition to being like smart, so you can be smart, that's helpful, but being mobile and being an actual athlete even at 38 years old and have been pretty sedentary for a long time, I refuse to be a sitting duck. Um, and so I for the last 8 weeks I've been going to the YMCA 5 days a week minimum, 5 a.m. To get to shoot around, basically to loosen my body up, to get myself back into what I would call like a short area quickness drill is kind of what I do. So I'm guessing people are going to wonder what kind of routine that you're doing, Jared, that you're losing over 45 pounds, that you're getting in shape to play football at 38 years old, and you're also playing quarterback. So there's like this extra motion effectively that I have to be able to do. Uh, and last week when I recorded the episode, I was a bundle of nerves, and you could totally tell. Um, when I watched it back, initially my initial impression was I should just delete this and record something else. And I sat on it for a week, and obviously it's the Super Bowl, and there's a lot of the same thing going on today that's been going on. Um, and my hope is that this game goes by without injury, and that it's a barn burner, and it's exciting, and that it's a game to the end, and that it isn't decided by a coin flip. Coin flip. Um, but I was so to get back to sort of what I was kind of going to iterate to the fan base in terms of why the Colts aren't here today. It's not entirely on Carson Wentz, but obviously um, we know Kurt Warner told us exactly what Carson Wentz was pressing, and that's what I think that's called pressing. Um, it's like when you are so convinced that, and here's how I would say what it is. When you're so convinced that you are superior, that you will press an advantage instead of taking what is available to you. And a lot of people, myself included, so this is great that this is the Nyheim Hines episode, and it is by no means. I do not plan. I do not plan my podcast episodes like a lot of people. I kind of want this to be stream of consciousness because that's who kind of the person who that I am, right? I'm trying to have a conversation with people who care about the Colts, who are Stampede Blue fans, who appreciate the sort of content that I put out, right? So the reason the Colts aren't here, in my perspective, while Carson Wentz was pressing and playing and trying to play hero ball, and it ultimately did not work out. So statistically, Carson Wentz falls just below what I would consider the threshold for an acceptable completion percentage for a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he came in about 25th in the league. So yes, that means Jared says that there are roughly about 8 quarterbacks in the NFL that shouldn't be here. Um, just based on statistics. I think there are collegiate quarterbacks that complete well over 65% that never get a shot in the NFL. And all I care about is putting the ball in a player's hand and letting them see what they can do with it, right? Because clearly I'm not the ball carrier. But when you look at what would you say Stafford and Burrow have on Carson Wentz specifically, is less of a desire to use their legs as a weapon and more of an appreciation for the finer art of throwing the ball. So today, when you watch the Super Bowl, you're going to see a lot of completed passes, a lot of unique schemes. These guys, Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Bengals, used to work for Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, right? So you're going to see some fight, is what I expect. A lot of people have come to me and asked, and I've asked a lot of the people that I care about, who do you think wins this game? People are pretty split, actually. I think for the record, most of the what I would call true football fans, like hardcore football fans, are like, dude, the Rams are going to win this, going away. And a lot of what I would consider more casual fans, more of Ohio's a way of a life than less than football is, less so than football is, are saying, hey, the Bengals are going to win this game. I personally believe because I make content about gambling, right? So I sort of think about it like a gambler. Um, the Bengals are a 4-point underdog. Now, in my opinion, the home team gets 3 points. So this means that if, in the way I calculate that, so I'm so sure people will be like, how'd you arrive there? The way I look at it is, I don't know about y'all, but if you ever fly from like Cincinnati to LA and back, it's gonna be some jet lag. It's going to be a little getting used to the time difference. Obviously, the weather's going to be different. Cincinnati coming from the same sort of weather we had here in Indy, right? Yesterday, for example, it was 24 degrees and blowing snow. Um, so since he kind of coming across the country, they'll get there with some time to get their legs under them. Um, and then, of course, again, playing on the road in the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl potential Super Bowl winning team is also hosting, right? And that's how Vegas sees it. Vegas again has the Rams at -4, which means they're willing to say, if you would like to bet against the Rams, we'll give you 4 points. And so basically, I tend to believe the Rams should win this by touchdown, and would bet the Rams to win the football game. Bengals are a 4-point dog on the road. This speaks nothing to their reliability nor any of the other statistics that you would normally consider. It's the Super Bowl, and you sort of throw out your norms. From my personal opinion on the betting the Bengals, for the record, is you're just hoping that Joe Burrow gives them a shot to win. Burrow and McPherson give them a shot to win the game late, is what I'm kind of hoping for all that is football. And because the Rams have done a really good job at building a team full of stars at every level. If you really look at, and now we're here at the Super Bowl, and so now we can look at their personnel and say, wow, the Rams actually like Von Miller, Aaron Donald to anchor your defensive line. They've got Ramsey to lock up the opponent's number one receiver. You've got Matt Stafford, who for all intents and purposes, Stafford and Burrow are what I would consider top 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the league. Top 8, let's say it like that. They're in the conversation for top 8 in the league. And there's a lot of factors that go into that, and there are tons of conversations we can have about football. But that's kind of where I sit on them. And so what lessons you learn from Burrow and Stafford is that they consistently put their offenses in scoring position and get points on drives. Where what Carson Wentz will do is he'll try to get the first down and then some with the ball, and what he's doing is pressing, and then it's like he's trying to cowboy, right? He's trying to be like. I hate to say it like that. He's the kind of person that has no idea what stealth is, right? That has no concept of consistently just delivering a strike, moving the ball, quick little fist pump. Let's keep moving. Let's keep going. And let's keep going. Let's keep going. And when you score, it's let's keep going, and you're motivated all the way through the contest, right? No matter the outcome or what the score is, or who's playing well or who plays poor, what has happened in the game has no bearing on your attitude, right? Carson Wentz is kind of one of those people that's not how that works out at all. His play very much is dictated by the sort of ebb and flow of the game, and that can be dangerous, right? Because when the bottom falls out and so does his play, and you can connect the two repeatedly, it's like, and it's more endemic for the record, because a lot of people are going to wonder, hey man, you've been around football, right? Semi-pro football, and you've told you a lot of these guys are friends, right? Just like you would expect on like a pro team. And how does winning and losing affect? So winning is the ultimate high, right? There's absolutely fucking nothing in the nothing in the fucking world like winning a football game, specifically late. So I actually had that up. I wanted to get to that too. One of the reasons the Colts aren't in the Super Bowl is that they did not have a sort of trial by fire for Carson Wentz. He was not relied upon, or was not capable of delivering a comeback win for the Colts. And that again has a lot of mitigating factors to it, which makes my statement worth a little less. But what I'm getting at is there's only like five quarterbacks in the NFL without a fourth quarter or game winning drive. And that was Carson Wentz, Josh Allen, Davis Mills, Justin Fields, and there's one more down there at the bottom. And I'm not even looking at the screen. So I could show you there's only like five quarterbacks in the NFL that didn't have a fourth quarter game winning drive. Now, Josh Allen and Carson Wentz, who I would consider the best of that bunch, not in the fucking Super Bowl. Now, does that say on the one hand, when things are going really well, both those teams are scoring 30 plus points on offense and are dog walking people, right? So there's no opportunity or limited opportunities. Cool. Except, again, neither of them are playing in the Super Bowl, so they came up short. And then when you go back and watch, I'm willing to bet more often than not, because Josh Allen's completion percentage is down there where Carson Wentz's is. So you see, they're not playing in the Super Bowl. Here's why. The reason they're not playing in the Super Bowl because they're pressing. It's like these offenses are trying to push the ball vertically down the field, which I'm totally a fan of. But you have to be amazing in the short area, right? It's as a coach, player, I would just call I'm just like a football man. That's like the fuck I do. When it comes to football, there's so much ebb and flow to football games. It's no wonder that organizations are seeking long players, like lanky guys that can just get a hand up, right? Do anything, um, and long athletes that are versatile, and specifically that are quick and that are to the football and that are always around the ball and you see them always making plays. These are the guys that are playing, and kind of no matter the level. For the record, there's a lot of people that have asked me, of course, like, do you feel like you're wasting your time? And one, any endeavor that is not all about you is a worthy endeavor. And when I got involved with the Cutters, having the sort of background that I do, that if you don't know, and I'll post a picture on social media, but I've played football, organized football, since I was in third grade, which is like the mid 90s, which puts me roughly around 30 years of the game. Being like a cornerstone of my life, from consuming as much live football as a human being possibly could over the course of his life, in addition to trying to play at nearly every level. Um, and here I am, 38, almost 39 years old, and I got myself into a pickle. So after you've watched episode 20, and you come down the Jordan Wilkins episode, then you come down here and watch the Nyheim Hines episode, um, you'll notice, obviously I'm a lot calmer now, because I've come to terms with what is required of me, and I know what is ahead, and I'm not going to um, I'm not going to let the opportunity overwhelm me. I'm going to overwhelm the opportunity. So I've been in the gym, like I said, for a long time. I've cut a considerable amount of weight. I'm struggling to catch 8 hours of sleep regularly because I'm exercising, right? I'm trying to put myself in as good a spot as I can when somebody tries to kill me, right? Because that's basically what's coming, right? Is things are gonna go swimmingly, and then a guy slips a block, and a guy gets a free shot on you, and if you exercise enough, you might be able to move just enough so that that person doesn't take my head off, right? Um, so that's where my head is, and that if you can't do it with your arm, you got to do it with your legs. And I'm ancient, right? So I'm working both. Uh, I know that I'm going to have to be able to do it with my arms, so I've been exercising, you know, a lot of shoulder, a lot of elbow exercises, a lot less. There's a lot, when you really start taking this shit seriously and you start going to people that do this shit professionally and asking them for tips on exercises, that one of the things I noticed is a lot of the exercises that you do as you sort of get into weightlifting aren't important anymore. Like bicep curls, for example. That's ancillary exercise I can get done with resistance bands in my living room. I don't actually need to go to the gym to do that. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so the attitude is sort of killer, right? My thought process is I need to be doing as much of this work outside of a gym as possible just to reduce my risk of contracting and or transmitting COVID-19, right? So obviously, I'm still encouraging everyone to get vaccinated, get boosted, wear a mask, even in public. Don't think for yourself, right? But think for yourself in terms of you don't want to kill one of your friend's grandparents because you're a dumbass, right? Like think about it like that. And we all know people that have died, and I know people that have died that are young, old. I don't know any kids that have died of COVID, so let's just go there. But on the whole, that's certainly happening. So I certainly see that there's physical evidence for that, supports the concept of saying hey, just get a vaccine, get a booster shot. That's probably in your best interest. Wear a mask. So I've been going to the gym at 5 a.m. because we all know early bird gets the worm, right? But I've also noticed about the only time of the day that the gym is in a zoo. So I can get a full court to myself. I get in there, shoot around for half an hour, and I'm really, jumping off one foot, jumping off both feet, right? Trying to chase a rebound down, trying to stop, you know what I mean? Like I'm exercising here. I'm just using a basketball to give me something to chase. And that makes sure I get a good sweat and a good amount and burn a good amount of calories out of it. Now, I would love to get in there in the morning and lift. I want to do squats and related exercises Monday and Friday, right? And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, what I've been doing in the morning is I've been working chest and related exercises. Um, and then Wednesdays, again, I'm going in there shooting around in the morning for half an hour. But again, if I had a partner or something, I'd be in there probably doing power clean deadlift on a rotation. So to give y'all an idea of what I would recommend, um, if you are overweight like I am and you are healthy otherwise, I am not a personal trainer or doctor or even interested in any of those things. I'm a coach, player, right? So you just kind of listen to my opinion. First of all, you should listen to doctors and shit. You should give a fuck largely about what anyone that doesn't have a PhD has to tell you about how to best become a good athlete, or at least certified trainers, right? So there's a couple that I've come to listen to. They're certified. I like what they're saying. So first things first, athletes now cannot just play one sport um, to become the best at your sport. Because what I'm noticing when I'm doing training is that I'm more prone to get injured while I'm training than I am just playing another sport. And this is, I think, because at its core, we forget that, playing sports is optional and it is an act, it's like a hobby. It's not required. And so as a result, when I'm preparing to, April 23rd for the record, which is probably 50 days away, I'm guessing, Just throwing that out there. It's about 50 days away. Uh, I'm thinking April 23rd. So all of March is 31. There are 15 days left in February. So 31 and 15 is 46. And then it's on the 23rd, 69 days. In 69 days, I have a scrimmage, a scheduled scrimmage. I don't know where it is. I don't know who the opponent is. I don't care. So my attitude at this point is I have to be able to do whatever we want to do, right? In order to do that, obviously I gotta be confident. Um, of course, I'd love to get introduced to the offensive coordinator and play caller, but it's more important probably that we are conditioned and prepared to play football because the bulk of our games are played in the heat of the summer here in the Midwest. And that's one of the things I noticed early, specifically. When the weather was pretty good or even cool to rainy, Cutters didn't lose. But in extreme conditions, specifically extreme heat, we had guys kind of, I would say, coming up a little loopy as a result of exposure to heat, right? So a little bit of heat injury. And it's just because it's hot, it's super hot, and it feels like the sun is touching you. And again, that speaks a lot to preparation and things like that. Um, but that's what I kind of found out, getting back into the game live on the sideline, talking about, first of all, it can be hectic if you don't have great leadership. And if you don't have someone who's locked in to the idea that, when you're on offense, you got to snap that ball every 40 seconds, basically. So, like, inside of a minute, you got to make a really good decision about what you're going to do next based on what just happened. And it's contextual. And that's, one of the arguments against data in sports will always be that football is contextual and that you don't know what's coming next. You don't know what down and distance is going to be. You don't know if there's a flag or whatever. So teams find themselves sort of flailing about. And so that's one of the pieces of information I'd kind of given the Cutters at the end of our season last year was that I felt like things can get kind of hectic and helter skelter. And one of the ways to combat that sort of, things being hectic and helter skelter is to have a better plan in place. Um, so for example, we let everyone know, there's going to be we had a call out meeting. They didn't have that last year. We announced the combine. We didn't have that last year. We announced roster that we're changing leagues. We're going into a better league, and that there's going to be roster cuts, right? So from my what information I've been given, that sort of laid the gauntlet down in front of me and said, this isn't just a walk in the door situation. This is you're going to have to compete for that position situation. Um, we went to the call out meeting, which is I believe after the episode I recorded last week that I didn't post on YouTube until today because I'm self-conscious and I felt like I was a little out of sorts last week and I didn't want to be the sort of hectic, frantic sort of frame of mind I was in last week. I didn't want that to be um, sort of anyone's impression of me, right? Like I said, just I was really nervous last week. To be completely honest, I was just nervous and anxious. Before and after, it took a little time for that to wear off, and that's why I feel a little better about today. Um, but yeah, I think Matt Stafford and Joe Burrow work well within their offense to get themselves into position to take risks. And then what you see on paper, anyway, and what you should see here today is a little more magic and then a little more failure, right? Or turnovers. So one of the pretty common statistics that Carson Wentz has is what I call the 2-0, two touchdowns, no interceptions. Um, you're 50-50 to win those in my eyes. If quarterback just throws two touchdowns and has no interceptions, you probably didn't take enough risk, and as a result, you probably got outscored. It's just the way I look at it. Quarterback, from my perspective, in a pass-heavy NFL, the quarterback has to be the hard carry. He has to be attacking and attacking the end zone and putting the ball on guys in the end zone, giving them an opportunity to make a play. Um, so not only are Stafford and Burrow better at Carson Wentz of getting a drive into scoring range and capitalizing. You can see that by the number of touchdowns they throw. Each of those quarterbacks also threw a few more interceptions than Carson Wentz. But the problem is that they threw double-digit more touchdowns, right, than Carson Wentz did. And at the core of my argument is got to get better at scoring the football. So at once I start attacking Carson Wentz for not being great at scoring the football, then we sort of back up to it. And what I feel based on sort of limited research and probably not I don't have enough information, is I actually feel like the Colts personnel use and play calling was better than I gave it credit for. Um, I will always wonder, for example, what happened with Nyheim Hines, or were teams just keying on Nyheim Hines, knowing he's dangerous as hell and that you got to get him stopped before he gets going, or he's going to get loose. And instead, they just let JT run all over them, hoping they can get some tread on his tires, right? But I don't really think this was the year for him. You know what I mean? He in my eyes was absolutely the MVP. Was not utilized effectively. And the Colts are fortunate he didn't get it, didn't suffer a severe injury as a result of what I would again consider his use could have been better. Same thing with Nyheim Hines. So that tells me that the play calling and personnel groupings were good. And that again, Carson, it's almost one of the plays that will stick out for me, for example, trips to the right, or could have been just like a bunch to the right, and a single receiver down to the left, and it's JT is playing receiver. And Carson Wentz drops back to pass, and right away, no one's guarding JT down at the bottom of your screen when you go back and look for this play. And Carson Wentz could have just stepped into it and thrown one out there, and I promise you, it's the same result either way. Or it would have been touchdown, I think. And instead, he looks off it and tries to go upfield, comes back to it late, hits JT. JT makes a guy miss, and I think he ends up down at like 3 or 4. But if you rewind the play, if you go back to when Carson Wentz first looked out there to JT, I want to say had like 11 to 15 yards off coverage, and that if you give him the ball with that kind of space, he's probably scoring. Let's be serious. He's gonna get around that guy, right? So that will always stick out to me, right? And again, so will the knowledge of like after the season, Chris Ballard cornered Carson Wentz and said, "You just gotta take the easy check down, right? Like take the easy stuff." Um, and as I prepare, so like I said, I kind of told you my routine and what my routine will be. In addition to that, I'm on about a 20-hour a day fast, 6 days a week. My only days off are Sundays, except that I always try to keep my fast together. So it's like I have a bare minimum threshold, like things I'm willing to go all the way back to this, but we're not going to stop that. So I'll always probably go. I mean, it's 11 o'clock. I haven't eaten yet, right? So I'm fast about 20 hours a day, and then I try to get two uh, pretty lean, protein heavy meals in about a 4 hour window, so I can go back to my fast. Um, I drink primarily coffee, water. Um, I don't take supplements yet, so I'm not supplementing with protein or um, forcing more protein down my gullet. I'm trying to establish sort of a baseline, get back to things like making sure that I eat vegetables as often as possible and learn to love them too. And you got to find ones that are good for you that you love. For example, in my sort of discovery through this process, trying to do it right. Because if you know me, or this is the first time I've told you, this isn't my first time trying to lose a bunch of weight. So a long time ago, um, about May 2005, um, I had decided that I needed to leave Indiana for a while and just wanted to get out of town. And I decided to join the Marine Corps. And I went to the recruiter's office at 348 pounds. So about 30 pounds heavier than I was when I started this time. And kind of got laughed out the door and said you would need to weigh 228 pounds to ship. And the guy told me, best of luck. And on August 28th, 2005, I shipped for boot camp in the Marine Corps Infantry, and then I graduated from boot camp in November 2005. Went straight through. So, like I said, I've been through this before and did it what I would call the wrong way then. Calorie restrictions. I was eating an orange for breakfast, pumping a gallon of water a day, which means you're going to pee out a lot. I ate an orange for breakfast. I'd have like a salad and a little bit of like tuna, chicken for lunch, and then I try to have a little more for dinner, um, something along the lines of some other carbohydrate, just so you had a little bit of energy. And ultimately was doing things like sitting in a sauna and then like swimming until you couldn't move, go sit in a sauna forever and fry. Obviously, after you take a shower, because you don't be sitting with chlorine on your skin while you sit in the sauna. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, so I'd try to basically see how much weight I could lose a day, right? And when you're fasting like that and exercising like I was and eating as calorie restrictive as I was, I mean, I was probably guarantee I had like a $1,500 calorie deficit every day. And I lost, shoot, 100 and 120 pounds in about 90 days, pretty unhealthily. So I knew I wasn't going back to that. But I decided, so now I told you what I do exercise wise, right? Practices are on Saturdays right now, which games will be on Saturdays. Practices will be on Thursdays, I imagine. So I'm in the gym 5 days a week, on the field one, and then resting one. And I'm so thankful for rest days, right? Like, gotta have them. I'm a firm believer in this as an athlete, and I have been at all phases, right? So as a child, as a teenage adult, as a young adult, as an adult, and then now I'm middle aged, right? Well, I believe that's what it's called at 38 years old. I'm middle aged. I'm about 6'4.5" in cleats and weigh about 275 pounds to play quarterback. But my desire is to be more useful. And so I know I sound like a fucking crazy person. I have to at this point, but I've sort of resigned myself to, it's not enough for me to just say I'll play quarterback. I feel like that's easy, but I have to be able to be relied upon outside of my primary duties because I feel like that's the ideal football player now is someone who is prepared so that when you look at someone and say, "Hey, can you kick a field goal? Can you punt?" Those are things that I'm going to work on. And then things, and not to start, I don't intend to do those things, but it's just like something I'm going to pick up. So that if I'm ever called upon, yeah, absolutely, I'll go make that happen. I got you, fam. And then similarly, I'll hold. Not blocking, I'll do that shit too. I'll hold. I'm talking about hold the snap so somebody can kick. I'll do that shit too. But also I want to be able to be used on defense. One of the things that I found that the team lacked last year was sort of an extra body for their secondary that you could just plug and play at a few different spots and you just tell him what to do. He'll just do that. And then that solved that, and then okay, and then you got you the ball back, right? Because I want the fucking ball in my hands, right? And one of my favorite players is Darius Leonard, right? Who's like a maniac. He's literally a maniac. He's every fucking where. He's always at the ball, and then he takes it from people, and it's chef's kiss. So who doesn't want to like be that person to their team, right? And it's not to say that I'll ever get on the field defensively. So I also understand that. That's part of being crazy is understanding like you're preparing for like a worst case scenario that may never rear its ugly head. But you never know. So that's kind of way I've prepared is in addition to preparing to run for my life, I'm also physically preparing to do more than run for your life, right? We're actually able to put up a little bit of a fight here. So that's got me in the weight room and back to what I would call Olympic lifting. And that's no, I'm not going to lift Olympically. I think I'm weak, frankly. I don't know how strong I'm capable of becoming, but I am. It's one of my concerns is sort of what's the ceiling for me right now. I would say I'm at the floor, for me, strength wise. Um, so. sort of now that I iterate that, I say that out loud, I am sort of the weakest. Yesterday was our first practice. And um, I am not upset with the turnout because in Indianapolis it was 24 degrees and driving snow that I would think there's an amount of people that are like, I'm not driving in that to go run. Uh, I'm not gonna go do that. I'm not gonna go drive to play outside. Like I'm not gonna do that. Not in this weather. But we had about what I would call half of our starters there. A few of our offensive linemen, uh, a couple pass catchers, a few secondary members, and leadership was there, which is what's important. You got to have leadership there to sort of observe. And we did a I'll tell you what we did for our first practice, so you could be like, "Oh shit, they actually did football shit." Yeah, we actually did. We actually did good practice. Good practice habits are important. So the first things first is we started out. We ran a lap around the field together, just kind of getting loose, warming up. And I joked that I was gassed after the lap, but here the fuck I am. So, woo! So we ran a lap together, and then in addition to running a lap, then we immediately went into the 40-yard dash. So for those of you that have watched the other episode, the erratic episode that I had last week, the Jordan Wilkins episode, um, last week it was announced that we were going to start practicing on Saturdays. So every Saturday from here on out is a scheduled practice. Um, so we got right into running the 40 because we have a combine on March 12th. So we get down and we run 40s. We ran 10 40s. I lied. So after we ran a lap, we did a dynamic warm up. So we all got up on the end line and we did, high knees, butt kicks, um, hip flexor rotation exercise, um, like 1, 2, 3 kicks, 1, 2, 3 lunge, whatever. You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3 bend down and touches. We did dynamic. We did aerobic, anaerobic, dynamic. We did all that stuff. We stood in a circle. We, you know, we did a half gasser, push-ups or squats, half gasser back for those. You know what I mean? We really got after it, I think. And I wouldn't say I was doing anything fast because I was trying to break in new cleats too. And I'm also trying to play quarterback, and I was the only quarterback type there. So I was holding back during that period purposely. One, I didn't want to overexert myself, get to my period and have nothing in the tank, then my gun's fucking broken, right? So for the record, I wasn't trying to beat anybody or be the fastest vent in that moment. I was like, let me get these boots broken, then we'll go from there. And that's not to say I could have run faster. That's just to say seriously, I was taking it kind of easy yesterday, but because I want to make it through the shit. So I did everything. So I pat myself in the back. I did all of the exercises. May have not done them all necessarily as fast as we would have liked, but I did everything except for a little short area drill. And when am I honest with myself and I look back on what kept me from doing that? I told my wife this morning, I sort of had like this, it's like a match got lit in my brain and it's got snuffed out immediately. It was like, do not do this. My head was like, you're gonna throw up if you do like another down and back. We were, like I said, we were getting after it. We were doing this little box drill where you sprint 5 yards, break down, and then you also have to, side shuffle, backward shuffle, right shuffle. You know what I mean? But you got to do it fast, and then go, sprint 5 yards. Well, I know that was a great exercise that requires me to be in a little better shape. So I passed on doing that and just jogged it down and back. Again, sort of conserving energy because I knew at some point they're going to put a ball in my hand and say, hey, can you fucking throw this thing? So they did, and again, you have to have this sort of thing has to happen at a football practice. Otherwise, did we just get together to run? So what they ended up doing is they lined up I got shotgun snaps from a couple different centers. Got to sort of drop back, in my cleats, throw a football, and I'll say this. So one of the things I've always got in the back of my mind, in addition to being old, is nobody knows who the fuck you are, right? Like I haven't played quarterback at an appreciable level that anybody has any quantifiable. There's no tape on me, except for a little bit of last year that you can find on Huddle. where I was again probably like 330 pounds. Um, but the first ball I threw yesterday, I felt like I threw that fucking thing to the moon. I, you know, if this isn't inspiration in that you're more powerful than you could ever fucking know, because you could work for like 10 weeks and all of a sudden have an arm without throwing a million footballs a day. And then, to my own credit, patting myself on the back, I felt like for a bunch of people who I have never seen run run routes for me, with me throwing balls to them, that I quickly developed rapport with my what I would imagine is my number one wide receiver, and then what I imagine is one of my tight ends, uh, uh, Juan King and Noah Ponce. Um, I feel like I've developed a quick rapport with them. We get along. My offensive linemen are amazing. Chris Brummett, Seth Mackin, and Hunter Stout that were there yesterday, and then obviously everybody else was there. There was a lot of defensive players there, and so what they did was they were like, "Hey, all we wanted to run today was slants, hitches, speed outs, and fades." And from my perspective, all I can do is focus on making sure that I am one always challenging myself. So I try to put a little pump fake or head fake, just to give my receiver the notion that I'm not just a fucking robot. This ball is not going to be just poorly thrown. For example, on my slant balls, I was hitting guys in stride. I'm putting the ball at worst on your hip, right? So if I'm again a coach and I'm critical and I'm looking back at what I did yesterday, first of all, I had gas enough left in the tank so that when we started throwing the football, I wasn't a complete liability. Was I good? Not at all. It was snowing. I had a glove on one hand. I didn't wear gloves. I'm a firm believer in quarterbacks shouldn't wear gloves. And this is more of a preparation for the worst possible scenario than it is like me not wanting to use technology, right? Um, and so by the time we got midway through our conditioning drill, the owner of the team like brought me a pair of Adidas and was just like, "Put this shit on, like your quarterback with no gloves on while we're doing conditioning. Like, what's wrong with you?" And then once he started throwing, I took the glove off. So it wasn't necessarily gripping the football that I was having a problem with, but what I was struggling with, and so this is me telling my community, like, "Hey, I had this thing I don't really have film for, so I have to be more critical than I can be like patting myself on the back, right?" So one of the things I found, and never, no, it wasn't necessarily like ball coming out. So it's not, and again, this is what I kind of told my wife too. Once the ball is like, on its way out, right? Everything from here forward is generally the same with quarterbacks. And I get it. I am generalizing. I'm also left-handed, so that's kind of a dumbass statement given how few left-handed quarterbacks there are. But you get it, what I'm saying. Just flip it in your brain, right? So this motion is generally like the same. So once you get like good motion in your arm, holy shit, ball's coming out. Um, so I felt really good, specifically because we were working short area throws. You're primarily doing this with your brain, just trying to get where's the ball supposed to be, where based on where he's at. All right, cool. So I felt like I was putting the ball on receivers pretty regularly. And then I was also surprised by a couple of the players on our team's speed, which made it challenging for me to sort of get my body around and get that ball out before they got too far away from me. If I sort of painting a shitty picture, that's kind of what I'm at right now. But then from there, one of the things that we got to towards the end of practice was hidden fades. Just little, I was catching the ball in a shotgun, just taking a little three-step drop and just kind of getting a step into fade ball. And I'm happy to say, like, first of all, what I'm able to do from about 20 to 30 yards away from the end zone is I can put it in the back corner of the end zone. That's what I want. I was also throwing the slot seam to tight ends, and hitting them. I would argue a little too far inside, more towards the middle of the field, than instead of sticking in that second tube on the left side, which again needs to be my strength. So my ball needs to come out more so that that tight end's catching the ball, you know what I mean, where nobody can get it, and towards the back line, right, is where so the ball so by telling you, I figure it out for me. So I need to throw the ball more towards the back line for the tight end, and I was throwing it like inside. I'm more like throwing a deep post than I am throwing the streak, right? So and again, by being critical, you grow. Be critical of yourself so you can grow. So I felt like I had good ball location, pretty much no matter who ran it. Which again, totally pat your fucking self in the back. I'd argue that I needed work hitting screens to receivers and backs and hitting the back out of the backfield, those kinds of things, because that's the kind of shit that we harp on Carson Wentz for not fucking doing, and then I go to practice and don't throw those routes. So yeah, so for me, the only letdown again is that I didn't really get any work with the backs, and our running backs are the crux of our team. And again, like I told you, our offensive and defensive line, the big boys are going to eat. And if that's the fucking case, I gotta get work with the backs catching the ball in the backfield because they've got to be a dual threat, I believe. And they are, and they are. Our backs are pass catchers. I just wish they were there. But not everybody's going to be there every week, and that's kind of one of the things that our organization. That's kind of what's being told to me. It's kind of going to be the attitude I adopt. Is the same kind of thing that a few years ago. If you're a Stampede Booth fan and you've been watching my content for a while, a few years ago I got to interview. I've gotten to interview Pat McAfee, and then a few years ago I got to interview Eric Ebron for a charity event he was doing with Campbell's Soup. And I sort of asked him, you know, and that in that time frame, I said I felt like injuries had a really big impact on what has happened with the Colts in the last 5 years. They just got all these things kind of stacked up on them. When you draft poorly and you're coached poorly and managed poorly, eventually it's going to catch up with you and take out even your more responsible betters, even your better players are going to end up in a spot where they're suffering as a result of like Reggie Wayne not getting into the Hall of Fame right away is a part of that. Is the Colts weren't great towards the end of his career. They were good, they weren't great. So that's gonna be a problem. If they'd have got to Super Bowl one, shit, he's first ballot Hall of Famer. He's played in like 3 Super Bowls, won two, right? So you gotta think about that. And then for me, Eric Ebron said the best ability is availability. And the Cutters have adopted that as sort of a mindset. Like before you tell us what you want to do, show up. Show up and put in the work. So to have sort of half the starters there yesterday felt good. To be able to run full speed in cleats. So I kind of joked that I was new boot goofing yesterday, but I got out there and ran full speed in cleats. 10 40-yard dashes, a lap around the field, probably another 100 yards just in dynamics, did gassers, right? Like we really, when I got out there and got after it physically. And then we didn't overwhelm ourselves trying to like install. We just sort of like threw the ball around a little bit. It was kind of fun to obviously see everybody out together, but the weather wasn't a factor, except there was some balls where I let the wetness of the ball be a factor, or like the wind be a factor. For the record, when the wind is behind you and you're throwing into your end zone, I can't miss. No shit. Um, but when I'm throwing out of the end zone, for example, into the wind, um, I'm glad we weren't throwing fades, right? And sometimes I'd throw a ball and it would go left of where I thought it would. It's because the wind was blowing right to left. That's kind of what I'm iterating, especially if I didn't put enough velocity on the ball. But on the whole, what I noticed is I was having to do a lot less work with my arm, and a lot more of that was being done with muscles, things that aren't from the elbow down, basically. Or yeah, elbow down. That's what I mean. That had nothing to do with this. Like this is like average as fuck. But if you're like more sound as far as your throwing motion, which is, from my perspective, something that once you learn and you practice, if you just keep doing that, you could play forever as long as you're doing the right things. But then I already know, I could tell you, even from yesterday's workout, right? I could tell you, I feel good, I'm not sore, there's no pain, but what I know is I have to work, right? So it's not pain for me. I kind of joked that I was 99 out of 100 yesterday, but then I said broken them cleats, and both of my big toes I found apparently have a little fungus under them, and all I noticed was a little white streak. So for everybody at home, like, what the fuck's wrong with your toes? I didn't know until I tried breaking some cleats, and anytime I tried to stop, my big toes felt like they literally were on fire. And when I came home and bitched to my wife, and she had got something from Amazon in like an hour and was like, "Put this on there once a day." And first of all, that on fire shit went away right away. So whatever she got, and I looked at the ingredient list. It had like tea tree oil and stuff like that in it, but it has this acid in it that'll kill that. Um, fungus apparently that I've had, and to say I didn't know I had it's kind of ignorant. It's like any discoloration underneath a nail. If it isn't blood, it's probably a fungus, Jared. But now that I know that, and now that I'm doing something about that, I expect that that'll be less of a problem, and that'll let me more fully participate, because that's one of my gripes against quarterbacks. So for all of you participating, listening to my podcast, wondering like, please, dear God, I hope he's not like other quarterbacks. Um, I want to bench 225 at the combine. I want to run the 40. I want to do the shuttle drill. I want to do the broad jump. I want to do all those things. Why? Because it is a testament to you being told there's a test, and the team even organizing conditioning to prepare you for the 40, for things like the shuttle and the broad jump. I feel like we did things that should help you in those areas. We can only do so much about benching. And sort of leaving that preparation in my hands. So I counted before I recorded. I have 20 workouts left, 20 workout days left, not counting Saturdays. So that's 23 workout days left before the combine. I'm not nervous. I don't, like I said, I don't think I'll be able to bench 225. So that sort of takes me out. And I'm frustrated with that. And I, I had my shoulder replaced. I'm a disabled veteran, right? Fortunately, I'm a left-handed quarterback, and it's my right arm that's all fucked up, for those wondering. And then like tinnitus and PTSD are not physical disabilities. So for everybody wondering, like, oh, are you going to lose your disability? Well, fuck, I hope not. I'm trying not to die. That's the whole point of exercising and shit. And playing quarterback is more of a, you need someone that when the coach tells a player what to do, that the player either works within the framework of that and does what he is supposed to do, right? So you saw how I was kind of hesitant to say just as a good yes man, but is smart enough to know the difference between making an adjustment because it's correct and doing what the fuck you want to do, which is incorrect, right? For example, the reason that we practiced those routes yesterday is because those are the checks to an uncovered receiver, which makes sense. What is the first thing you would want your quarterback to know, right? This team's going to run a lot. We ran the fuck a lot. And then, hey, when you are throwing the ball, here's, this small smattering of super common routes that we would expect a quarterback to be able to throw. And again, that was just the hitch, the slant, the quick out, and the fade, and the streak is what I would say, because we ran it from the slot too. And so, yeah, so I don't feel like I had a great day throwing the ball. And I also held back. So again, I'd probably give myself about like a C for the first practice. But if that's the floor, the 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 world's our oyster. That's the way I look at it. If that's the floor, a dozen guys, the guy who expects to be the starting quarterback barely makes it through conditioning, and then ah, every now and then it looked like he had a live arm, but from the guy throwing the fucking thing, It's like relearning how to throw a ball when you are now 50 pounds lighter and have been doing resistance bands and free weights now for 6 weeks, right? So I've been lifting with free weights and doing resistance bands for about 8 weeks. So I got about 2 weeks where I was trying to get back into it, and I was just do resistance band in my living room until I started to feel it. But like I said, on the whole, I'm comfortable with my preparation. My knocks, of course, are going to be like, obviously for day one of practice, I was not ready for the uh, hour or so that we just when it got after it. I wasn't prepared mentally for that. It was like we went from, and it's not a knock either. It's my lack of preparation on my lower half is going to be our downfall. So that's why I'm going to cut this podcast off. I'm about an hour in, and I feel better. Last week I was erratic. I was mentally. You can, if you watch the podcast, I hope you feel that there was a difference. Um, Now I kind of realize I was the only quarterback there. I hope you certainly got that. And I kind of knew it was coming. I found out that last year's starting quarterback, though, might have very well made a like a professional team out west, um, the Rush. So of course the Cutters are rooting for him. I'm rooting for Sidney Moore out of West Vigo, Terre Haute, Indiana. Actually, about 6 foot 180. Good, really good athlete. I think he only had got sacked twice last year in like 12 games, first year as a quarterback. So obviously super elusive with the ball. And there were games, obviously our home games, like I said, home games, decent weather. We didn't lose, so he certainly played winning football. Um, I would say probably need another year at the position before we get paid to do it. But fuck, who am I? Who am I but some old man? Um, so on my way back in, I obviously know I got a long way to go. Right, 275, I don't think is a good weight, even at 6'4" and probably some change. Uh, Probably too heavy. Uh, I'm not a statue kind of player. I refuse to be a liability athletically, and that's why I'm super frustrated. Like I kind of have this in the back of my mind, knowing like it probably doesn't matter how hard I work, I probably won't be able to rep 225 by March 12th. But I'm gonna try as hard as I can, and that I think that's just as important as anything else. But I wanted to get also before I go, I wanted to get we're a little over an hour, but that's okay. So to close, um, so this message is to anybody that hung around long enough to get this shit out. First of all, my team needs sponsors. Your sponsorship gets you ad space and more. The more you give to an organization that one's winning a championship this year and probably will not lose as long as I'm at the helm or a major part of what happens on the field of play. And I'm doing this for the love of the game. Again, this is not something I'm doing for money, and I'm documenting my experience as part of this gig that I have with Vox Media. As a content, I think it makes it more interesting that the guy talking to you about football is not just sitting around talking about football. I'm actually preparing for and playing and preparing to play actual padded football. So that said, though, it is definitely could easily be a full-time job. So a lot of people say like anybody could do it. I fucking disagree with you. Um, I go to the gym at 5 o'clock every morning. I'm the only person there except for a dad and his son, and I believe he's committed to a local college, comes in there and is a quarterback, and I'm getting to know them. So for the record, I didn't just jump in and start working with them. I'm sort of dapping them up every now and then, saying good morning and shit, and trying to generally stay out of their fucking way, in hopes that one day, like he asks if you play football, whatever, and I get in there and I can work. So of course I do need to throw. But more importantly to me right now is my physical fitness. And those are things that I'll always have to work on, right? Because I'm old. Er, so in addition to the Olympic lifts, so this message is for anyone that still plays sports. You've got to lift weights. You cannot do this with resistance bands or on a bicycle or on a treadmill. You are going to limit yourself athletically by doing so. I understand that we're in a pandemic, but I'm a firm believer in you must do what you are planning to do, like within the confines of a football game, for example. You have to do that in preparation. So, what that means for a lot of people is sprinting full speed at your given size and physical condition without gassing yourself to the point of being worthless, a few plays later. And then, in addition to you got to lift weights, you have to be strong and fast for your size and weight. You also have to be able to switch gears, slow down, speed up. So, muscle control in addition to muscle density, right? Which sort of hinges a little bit more on things like high intensity interval training, which I'll get uh, to you a short uh, example of high intensity interval training, which we called the daily 7 in the Marine Corps. It's kind of hilarious that that's what it's high intensity interval training is what Marines do for warm up. Which is hilarious to say out loud many years later when you're doing hit in your living room, right? And I'm doing like isometric push-ups and all this shit, and I'm like scratching my head, like this is just a more complicated version of what Marines do to get loose, right? Because if you think about some of the core exercises of like a hit workout, for the record, a lot of people are going to be like, really? Yeah, like burpees, like jumping jacks. Those are daily 7 exercises. You do that shit. That's the Marines do that shit to warm up. That's not exercise. That's just warming up. Obviously, we've figured out many moons later, right? That hit, what we did as a warm up is probably better utilized as actual exercise. In hindsight, it does take a lot of gas out of people to do hit. So I found a hit routine on YouTube that I do. It's about 3.5 minutes. I do 3 sets. I struggle just like anybody else will struggle. That shit is fucking hard. But you can do it in place, right? So you can do it in your bedroom. I'd argue you could probably do this on your bed on that small of an area, like a yoga mat or smaller. So I do about a 3.5 minute long hit routine Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then I'm going to incorporate jump rope. Because again, I'm trying to work on, I think it's called my VO2 max. So the volume of oxygen that you can in and exhale in a given amount of time frame in order to do physical activity, right? I need to increase that. And then what I have to do is what I have to find out what are the exercises that you can do daily, for example, without hurting yourself, that are going to increase your VO2 max. Jump roping. So I'm gonna incorporate jump roping. I'm obviously I got to go back to I'm got to be more disciplined about getting in there and getting my Olympic lifts in. But again, I also love basketball, and basketball is my first love, and I like how I feel when I go to the gym and I run around for a while, and even if it's by myself, right, and I'm just shooting, and I get a lot of people are like, why wouldn't you focus on football? There's no one at the gym at 5 a.m. and we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I have to work with what's available to me. What's available to me at 5 a.m. is an empty gym. I'm in that bitch, right? And then what I found is if I want to lift Tuesday, Thursday in the mornings, I can go lift. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, everybody's in there lifting. That's how their routines work out because they're trying to bulk. I'm going the opposite direction. So 3 days a week, I'm in there in the morning playing basketball, and then I'm doing a hit routine at night in my living room, and I'm going to incorporate jumping rope. I'm torn between 10 minutes a day or 1,000 jumps a day. Everybody knows where my head's at. There's sort of 2 different programs I'm considering. But my thought process is if I do that, jump rope every day for 30 days, add a hit routine, and then, like I said, I've got to get in there and get in my Olympic lifts. Now, I do have a teammate willing to get in there and do those sorts of lifts with me in the evenings, so I'm going to work on that. And I just think that we're going to have to do it late in order to get in there when there's not a lot of people in there, because that's one thing I want to avoid. I don't want to get COVID in preparation uh, for playing a football game because I think in a football game I can keep from getting COVID with the equipment, right? I wore a balaclava yesterday all day, a purple balaclava yesterday. I looked like Cobra Commander because I had a red hat on and a red hoodie. It was dope as fuck. I and I yeah, and I had a blue T-shirt on anyway. I had a black T-shirt on. Sorry, I had a black T-shirt on. It said "Make football violent again." But yeah, so yeah, I'm preparing. I wanted to talk about my diet. So when I get up in the morning, I weigh myself because you're attacking the water weight argument by not consuming anything first, and you're just weighing yourself every morning habitually, right? It's my method of accountability, and then from there, I drink 12 to 16 ounces of water with a fully squeezed lemon in it. And a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. I've found that I don't get hunger pangs throughout the day if I drink that. And that alone is enough for me to want to do that every day. Who wants those stomach pangs, hunger pangs? Um, and then again, like I said, when I do break my fast, I try to make sure that I eat like good protein first. So like eggs and bacon, and then I am reinforcing all the exercise I'm doing by eating vegetables that are, your jalapenos, tomatoes, carrots, your green leafies. I'm really about. I'm struggling to incorporate the green leafies, but I'm learning about things like cauliflower are excellent sources of protein and also a vegetable, so that we need those. But yeah, like your vegetables, your cauliflower, your broccoli, your carrots, like we need to eat more of those things as athletes. 7 to 10 cups a day, you'll get injured less. So as I get back into being like an athlete and try to use the world around me and all the knowledge that's taken place to make me better, it's working. So eventually I'll have to put together a thank you video because there's a lot of doctors and shit out there that and science, get people with what do we call those certifications that give away information for free and just kind of tell you like do this, do this, do this, and it works. I have no qualms. I can always get better. I see every lived experience as the floor of your potential, and that like if what happened yesterday was like the bottom of what I'm capable of, we're Gucci because I'm not gonna let that shit happen again. I'm only gonna get better from there. I figure I get my toes fixed, I get my toes fixed, take care of this little fungus problem I have, and then continue to work. And I feel like you got a weekly test, right? So I got every Saturday I got a test, and I have Monday through Friday to prepare. So what's more important? Preparation, right? Like being prepared. It's just like they tell you in Boy Scouts, right? Be prepared, right? So that's all I can do from here is focus on fine tune my preparation, right? I don't ever. That's the thing about crazy. Not only do I think you're never done learning, or you're never done growing or becoming better unless you decide that you're comfortable with the pain of atrophy. And that has been my problem with the way my life was going, and not necessarily poorly, right? Like I'm an Eagle Scout, I'm a Marine, a disabled Marine, I'm a college graduate, I'm a homeowner. I've done a lot of things a lot of people will never fucking do in a million years if it weren't for being around me, right? Or in their own life, right? A lot of people would never do those sorts of things if they didn't see people like me do it and talk about it and say like, it's all work, right? I do all of this in addition to working a full-time job. And I try to make what I do outside of work as loud as what I do at work because I feel like what I do at work is good enough, right? I'm helping my elders, right? But when it comes to football, I hope I am leading the people that I am around primarily because I intend to be their quarterback, right? When you're going to be the signal caller, the guy calling the plays in the huddle, pointing them out, pointing out that what's going on at the line of scrimmage, making changes, talking with the coaches, talking with the players, right? Sort of being the middleman is kind of what I've gathered. You got to be in the moment, right? So, in as much as I am head down trying to prepare for this, I'm acknowledging that my preparation can always be better and I could always eat more strictly, right? But my problem again, just so everybody knows, like it's not all roses. I'm struggling to eat. I need to add a few hundred calories a day. My best method so far has been nuts, peanuts, cashews, and pecans. I think are like really good for you. And then I obviously need to increase my protein intake, right? So I obviously need to get squats, power cleans, deadlifts added into my rotation. I need to, again, I'm working hit, but I need to really focus on that shit. So that's like kind of one of the things, tomorrow when I go shoot around in the morning is more of a check-in, right? Like one of the things like, as you get stronger, I've noticed like when I go to the gym and shoot, I'm shooting over the hoop to start with until my body gets a little tired and then I feel like I can hit, right? And that's a testament to getting stronger. But for me, it demonstrates for me that you have to be testing yourself regularly. Otherwise, not only do you know what you're not know what you're capable of, but again, I'd argue like a lot of football players, they don't run full speed enough, right? They don't run full speed with a ball enough. They don't run full speed with a ball and try to change direction enough. They don't run full speed with a ball, try to change direction, get hit, and stay on their feet at full speed, finish the play enough. They don't. You know what I mean? I could keep going. We don't do enough of the things that we intend to do. So, one, it felt good to do a lot of things that are like football related yesterday. It felt good to be able to do all of them without succumbing to injury completely and like not and quitting, right? Like not being able to continue. That didn't happen. Nobody did. And then what happened during my focused period, I would argue, is it wasn't a total disaster. For the record, like I hit a deep fade to my who I expect to be my number one or two wide receiver, and then he called for a back shoulder throw, and I hit that to close the practice. So it wasn't a total. I'm selling it as total junk, but is what it is, man. Until it's on wax, I'm just ripping stories at that point until it's on film, right? So that's one of the things I'm also looking forward to is I want to see film. I want to see me progress and grow. I want to see why I'm missing throws. I know it's because it was a little wet yesterday and balls slipped out of my hand, and again, a lot of people don't accept excuses or reasons why shit didn't happen, but that was primarily the reason. Is just it was cold and wet. The ball slips out of your hand every now and then, and when I'm catching and throwing fucking quick outs like six in a fucking row. And I'm not bitching. It's like you have to do that dumbass shit, right? Hoping to dear God you never have to do that in real life, which it won't happen. That's not gonna happen. But it's probably good exercise, right? So yeah, this has been episode. I'm just being a smartass. This has been episode 21, the Nyheim Hines episode of the Coltist, a football podcast here. And like I said, we're about an hour and 15 minutes in or so. So hey, enjoy the Super Bowl. And I'll try to update you Sundays from now on, I think, is when I'll have a little bit of time to sit down. So my wife is on her way to get us a German Shepherd puppy to add to the 4 pit bulls and 2 cats that we have. So have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. Oh, and I took Valentine's Day off to clean my house because my wife's love language is acts of service. And you should learn your significant other's love languages, and you should push those buttons and make them feel good as often as possible. Have a good day.